superwhale64.com presents.
Welcome, everybody, to the Basefug Podcast. Oh, geez, I'm rusty. Today, we have a very, very special guest, a friend of mine, Dylan Strawn, a.k.a. Ninjah Fareye from Toronto. Welcome to the show, Dylan.
Hello, how are you? How are you doing?
It's great to catch up with you, man.
Yes,
we
likewise.
had some good times. I just want to put a little disclaimer for the Basefug people out there. Just real quick. We're changing kind of the format of the show, and this is why there hasn't been a show in the last 2 or 3 months or whatever. So don't worry, we're still here. We're just changing it to do a new format or whatever.
Yeah, I'm touched that I could be mounting a comeback with you here. I think we've been meaning to do this for a few minutes now.
Oh man, yeah. There's so much to talk about. I just want to start the interview with. I was going to start with one thing, but I'm going to start with another thing. So tell us about the bass driven. What's going on with bass driven, and what is that? How did that start? Tell us all about it.
Sure. I mean, I might as well start from the sort of beginning, right? So I had moved to Toronto in 2009, middle 2009. And this was right, I had just been booked for a gig here for this legendary series of parties called Breakcore Elimination Challenge.
Oh, jeez. Where did you move from?
So I moved up from Ottawa most recently. Okay. I grew up in the Ottawa Valley, middle of nowhere. Wilno,
yeah,
is where I was raised, really, and then moved to Ottawa eventually, started music there. Okay. But then anyhow, moved to Toronto, got booked for this gig, and I found out that the promoter of that gig, this dude Jackson, DJ Other People's Music, was moving away. So he would stop throwing parties in Toronto. It's not like there's a bunch of crews throwing this alternative music stuff, and I was already giddy excited to start throwing shows. I was already asking Jackson, how do you go about doing all this stuff? I was just a youngster at that time. And anyway, long story short,
how old were you?
I was putting it out there that, hey, hardcore Toronto crew, I want to do this party. And a buddy, Talik Zen, who is now an absolute brother of mine, writes me online and says, hey, I was thinking of doing a show around that same time. Let's put our heads together. And so we sort of did that first event together as core steppers, which became a bit of a notorious little thing. And then that after we met with DJ Blender, who at the time she was DJ Blender at the time, now more so known as Not a Form. When the three of us came together, that's when we decided it would become a whole crew, regular events, now known as Bass Driven.
Nice. Can you explain the type of music that was being played at these shows?
I mean, it was almost to our dismay that we started with no set goals. It was like breakcore. We were like breakcore kids,
Yeah.
But I have a real passion for the kind of jungle music as well. Talik Zen has his own, he's got a thing with classical music, and everyone has their own vibe, right? So at first, with Bass Driven, we started this Core Steppers events where it was on a Wednesday, so it wasn't nothing crazy, right? And we would try to kind of debut the real underground, a little odd, hard as hell, think Dutch Gabber times 1,000 and just breakbeats all over the place. But at the same time, we may have hosted you could call it a dubstep night. There was some drum and bass, straight ahead drum and bass acts, and a little more of the, how do you call that, 4/4 kind of, just four on the floor kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I don't I'm not taking anything from anyone, but I say if you can play at Bangface Weekender, you can play for Bass Driven. That's kind of the spectrum we cover these days.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna controversial take. This was gonna originally start with.
Oh, but,
yeah. Can you tell me about the Venetian Snare song "Fuck Toronto Jungle" that came out on the album 2370894. Can you tell me a little bit about
you
it?
got me on a bit of a tangent, so try to stop me at some point. But
No.
I'm working on a little mix, or it'll never happen because I've been doing this for years. But there's "Fuck Toronto Jungle" by Venetian Snares, and then somewhere I found a track by some underground dude, fucktorontojungle.com.
Oh, really?
And then I was gonna come out with a fuck facebook.com/groups/Toronto Jungle or something along those lines, right?
That's good. I like that one better.
But since well, okay, God, again, tangents. This will be a bit of this interview is tangents, but
that's what we're all
the
about.
Fuck Toronto Jungle, I get it, especially from Aaron Venetian Snares' side. He would get zero love from those people, right? And it's a bit wild because Toronto has a large drum and bass community. Like there's a lot of people that come out to some wicked good headliners, and it's a thriving thing. And then you've got someone like Venetian Snares, who's also a dominant force in what he does. I think.
Well, this was 2002, right? So
sorry,
this was like in 2002. So I think maybe they didn't know him yet. Like I'm sure he could play any show now.
2002. So there was some like proper jungle happening at that time. Yeah. So I sort of get Venetian Snares' side of, fuck you guys. You're willing to listen to some pretty ripping amens, but you're not willing to I don't know, take it that next step further to the Venetian Snares dark side world of crazy timings, different timings, time signatures. Oh no.
That's kind of what I wanted to lead into because I found this website called torontotapes.net jungletapes.net, and it's an archive of all of these 90s Toronto, that one the jazz channel. It was like a university channel or something like that, but they would have Shy Effects.
Yeah, I think it's DJ the U of T, and they still actually have, I think it's on Friday nights now.
Oh wow. And
it's still the same CIUT. Yeah, U of Toronto, CIUT has those legendary. But I didn't even know as a child. I was downloading that stuff and didn't even realize it was just coming from my neighbors up in Toronto.
Yeah, the 90s Toronto jungle scene. I was wondering if there's any. I know you didn't live there in the 90s. You were somewhere else. But is there anything that you could say and compare it to what's going on now in Toronto and maybe even the rest of Canada?
Shoot. Okay. I might get some hate for this, but I'm in this perfect age group where I kind of missed all that heyday stuff. I was just too young, in those 90s, I was like 10 years old. Anyway, so I would have missed all of that. And then that coupled with me growing up in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Kind of everything seemed huge to me, so I'd never fully grasped what that golden era was. Okay.
Yeah.
And so nowadays, when I'm at a party in a not too big of a club and there's a couple hundred people there, I'm like, yo, this is wicked.
Yeah.
That is cool to me. But I hear a lot of the gentlemen, the guys that are a little bit older than me, that were there for the 90s, that are like, oh, this is not like the 90s, and I missed the 2000 people parties.
Oh shit.
So that was a thing, and I get it. If you lived through those times, because I don't think you would have been around for those. Like you lived in
Moncton,
the East Coast, right?
Yeah. I flew to Toronto in 1999 to see the 9 Inch Nails on the Fragility tour, and I remember going to the record stores, and I remember there was their bootleg tape section was jungle sets. It's like, what's that fucking Mixcloud? It was like Mixcloud but on cassettes, and I remember picking up some. Yeah, and it was cool, but I don't have any jungle cred. I was like 14 when I was fucking playing StarCraft. I don't know shit about that,
right?
But I know something was going on there. I know, and especially now being older and going back and kind of studying the history that I sort of missed. I know that there was something going on there, and it's interesting that you're telling me about how the OGs are reacting to it, because that's sort of what I wanted to kind of if because I feel like that was sort of like New York had its punk scene in the 70s, and I feel like Toronto
Yeah,
had its jungle thing in the 90s. And I'm curious, since
yeah,
you were a big like amen promoter in
yes.
like the mid 2000s and up, I was wondering how that world like sort of kind of blended.
It it does, and
Yeah.
I'm happier and happier to see. God, I don't. Okay, some people don't like these labels or whatever, but like I like seeing the drum and bass kids coming out to something a little bit weirder that we're doing.
Yeah.
There was time. I don't know if these names will mean much to everybody here, but like, especially with the core steppers, we would put together some multi-genre stuff that was ridiculous. So we had like Strangejaw, who's a well-known junglist. He's on many notorious labels, wildly popular. And then we would put some other weird crunchy stuff with that. And the drum and bass kids are there for Strangejaw, but then they're like, oh, what is this fucking wonky stuff that's
Yeah.
going on as well? So there's a bit of crossover. I still get bookings in the drum and bass world, you know.
Yeah.
Um, one little comment, let me throw this in there, and I would love to hear your opinion too, actually, is I
Do it.
find, um, God, okay, because I just sent a mix off to this crew, and to me, it's like ripping breakcore nutsiness, but those guys are also, they're a breakcore crew, and they think of what I do as jungle.
Yeah.
But then the drum and bass heads, they'll hear that same stuff and be like, whoa, what is this gabber, weird, crazy
Yeah.
hardcore? Like, oh my God, my brain.
Yeah.
And it's such a funny thing because to this one group, it's one thing. To this other group,
Oh
it's a
yeah.
totally different fucking thing.
Well, the Game Boy shit, yeah. Like, remember, like I used the Game Boy for live, and I'd
Yeah.
be like cool with the chiptune people. I'd be cool with the breakcore people,
Hmm.
but to the chiptune people, I was a breakcore guy, and to like the breakcore people, I
Right.
was a chiptune guy. So
Right.
yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. Um,
Oh, that's so true. And I'm sorry, I know people hate on the niche things. I'll just preface all this that I like to use those niche genre names as just a descriptor. Okay, I'm not trying to like
I
pigeonhole you. I
understand.
wouldn't
I
say,
understand.
oh,
Yeah,
we're doing an 8-bit show, so let's book Will
yeah.
necessarily. I probably would do
I
that,
had to do
but
it, whatever. Yeah,
we
yeah.
like to mix it up too. So
Talking about like kind of mixing things up and collaborations and stuff. Can you talk about the Git mashup? That I think it was a compilation you were on with Nicky Nuts. We interviewed
yeah,
him a couple of months ago. Yeah, it's good things to say about you.
yeah, Nico. Hey, oh yeah, and a little aside because I was going through some of your back catalog of interviews. I gotta say, brother, I love how often I get mentioned.
Well, there you go. You're worth mentioning, dude.
No, no, no. And holy shit, and actually just an aside for people listening, this guy Will here interviewed Dr. Tom Pritchard.
Yeah,
Holy shit, he was part of the heavenly bodies.
yeah,
Buddy.
yeah,
What?
yeah.
That was cool. I really and I liked how you kept tying it into like the stage show and the sound that he would go. Loved it, loved it. Okay, anyway,
Well,
sorry, I'm getting
that
off track now.
that was the thing though. Like I know, like I like wrestling and I like music, and it's now you're seeing a little bit of crossover with like Jericho and stuff like that. But I
Yep.
find it's like sometimes you'll go to a show and you'll be like, ugh, this guy. If he watched wrestling, his show would be like a little bit better. You know what I mean? Like you have to really ham it up because people are paying like $20 to go see you, right?
No, seriously, right? Oh my God.
And
Okay, so sorry. Now I'll bring it back. So
yeah,
the
yeah, dude,
quad
bring it back.
core thing, quad core was that grouping where it's oh my dear Lord. So it was myself, Ninja Fareye, Nicky Nuts, who's notorious, put out on Animal Breaks, Wicked releases. We had the Archangel, he runs raggedjungle.com back in the day. He's put out Celestial Conspiracy, all kinds of records. And of course, the legendary Canadian Crinja, the four of us. So as bass driven, I hosted a show where it was surprise, surprise, Nicky Nuts, Crinja, the Archangel, myself. I think we had Mighty Dreadnought and a couple other notorious names in the hard jungle scene. And after the show, we all went back to mine. Well, it was kind of bass driven headquarters at that time. It was me and Talexen living together. The crew of us go back to the house. Uh, to go back, the party that we threw that night was called Get Mashup, and we just had there was a moment where the four of us were sitting in my room, and I think Nicky Nuts was like, "Hey, we have like four of the most craziest jungle producers in the world in the same room right here and now. Why don't we?" Okay, and I'm going to give Nicky Nuts the credit for this. He says, "Let's build a little sample pack. Okay, pick a BPM, and then each of us, the four of us, write. I think it was we were supposed to write 6 bars each." Just using this little sample pack. That all makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And so what was kind of sweet about it is my partner Layla, she had to get up early the next day. So there's four of the most nuts jungle producers, quiet as a peat mouse, with headphones on, all sitting around writing their own fucking malicious beats. And it was just such a surreal thing. There is a photo of it somewhere. But anyway,
That's very polite of
we
them. I don't use I
super
don't use
polite. It
I
was
don't use
so
headphones anymore. The tinnitus,
sorry.
just, I don't produce with headphones anymore. The tinnitus is just too crazy. My yeah,
Oh my Lord. Yeah,
I
no,
need a
no, no. You
speaker
got
or
to keep your
something.
levels down a bit.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Especially when you're doing fucking loud ass garbage breakcore. Yeah, um,
Well, what was kind of fun about it is like, so we did these four separate tracks, separate of each other. We didn't know what each other was writing. Yeah. And then we rendered the bits down. And again, I think Nicky Nuts actually did the final processing where he listened through each bit and sculpted it in such a way where you got that song Quadcore Get Mashup, which is out on the fucking legendary Flex Records. So that's wild unto itself. Good Lord.
awesome, awesome. I love these stories of just people being like, "Fuck it, let's do something." I don't want to get too philosophical or whatever, but I think that's like how you change the world. You know, like people get together
Mm,
and you make things. And I feel like a lot of people who might be listening might feel like, oh, well, I'm not creative or whatever. It's not about that. It's just getting together to do anything, a fucking yard sale, you know,
yeah.
just like anything to just express like yourself and like who what you
Yeah.
want to see in the world. And when you look at say like the scene like maybe like Toronto jungle that might have
Sure.
faded away for a little bit, but then you came back and you and Talexand were like promoting like a bunch of stuff and bringing in like you
Mm,
know C64 like breakcore guys and stuff like that. Well, I mean C64 has been around before, but you know what I mean. Like and just getting you're creating a game worth playing, and you never know.
yeah. Yeah.
People
Yeah.
might go make friends at your show. You know, people that didn't know each other, people might have started dating at your show.
Yeah,
Just
no,
all sorts of
man, even I
inspire a
think,
young
God,
producer. You
sorry,
know.
Will, stop me if I'm wrong here, but I think your story was pretty compelling where the first time I met you, I think you mentioned seeing our show in the friggin' newspaper, actually.
Um, it could
Was
have
that
been.
yours?
It could have been. Maybe. It's been like
And
my
then and
memory's
I'm just like,
shot.
oh shit, see that's and that actually brought someone out to see like, oh wow, there's actually something labeled hardcore in the friggin'
Oh,
events section somewhere, and just wow, okay,
maybe,
yeah, yeah.
maybe. Yeah,
There is still a world for
because
us.
I remember I saw you opening for I think it was like Panacea.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah, yeah.
yeah? And I remember yeah, I remember going to that. Yeah, yeah, it could have been that. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, I definitely when I was living in Toronto, I yeah. Wow, crazy man! When
That
you
was
really
good. You
when you really
oh
start
sorry.
think no, it's fine. There's a delay for everyone listening at home. There's a Facebook has a delay. Um, it's really crazy when you think about like these like I don't know if this is the word happenstances like where just like weird
Mm,
coincidences that lead to like culture creation. It's fucking
yes.
incredible because in 100 years when
Yeah.
we're long gone, there's going to be some kid who's going to discover like your old flyers and your old shows and like go through your backlog and stuff like that and maybe inspire him to do something. And I don't know, that stuff just kind of
Mm.
messes with me. It's so cool.
No, man. Yeah, the happenstance. I thrive on that, right?
Yeah.
Similar, just most recently. Okay, so I'll preface all this. I have type 1 diabetes, so I was a bit concerned with this whole COVID
Oh shit.
everything, right? I was a little more cautious than most, let's say. And then just recently, I finally contracted COVID, got through it fairly okay,
Nice.
survivable. And I'm like, you know what? I survived that. I've been missing gigs. Let's get back to gigs. And then, wouldn't you know, this Mexico City gig presents itself.
Oh, nice.
just like all
Let's
it was
talk
just like
about
bing
that.
bing, like right one after the other, bing bang boom. Hey, are you willing to come down to Mexico City to come play a gig? And it's like, what am I, an idiot? Yes, of course I am.
Do it, do it. Tell us about the Mexico. How's your Spanish? You habla español? No,
Lo entiendo. I mean, I
nice,
try, but
nice. It's probably more than
it's
me,
not
and
great.
I'm actually Spanish, so we're good. Tell us about this. Tell us about this Mexican gig.
This is pretty cool, man. So I've been wanting to link up with this crew. This particular thing. It's a 2-day event. Okay, it's on the 4th and the 5th of November, and it's like a big lineup, but it's a lot of up and comers. These are people I know it, man. Like I'm gonna be so happy that I'm playing with these people now, because in just a little bit down the road, I probably won't be able to play with them anymore. Like Sappho, for example, she's been bubbling up. Like they did a takeover at Bangface the last year, I believe,
Cool.
and that's another somewhat local homie, Rodroid Rod. He was a part of that, and he was my connection for this whole Mexico thing. He's a Montreal guy,
Oh, really?
Montreal/Mexico. He lives all over. He's a great guy, Rod. And he sort of connected all that Mexico City stuff. So it's a 2-day festival, I guess you call it. And it's just a bunch of like-minded, creative people, a lot of hardcore names on there, a lot of stuff to discover. It should be mental. I can't wait.
Speaking of hardcore, one thing I wanted to talk about, we're going to put on our propeller hats and we're going to start talking about producing a little bit. One thing I wanted to
Sure.
talk about was the Doom song. It really stands out. It's like a hardcore kind of
Ah,
breakcore song, and it kind of stands
yeah,
out from
yeah.
your other works. I'm
Hmm.
wondering, were what's the story behind that? What was the inspiration? Do you feel like it fits well in the rest of your work, or do you look back and go, maybe I should have put like that under like a side name, or was it just
Hmm. Oh, you know what? Oh, buddy, Will, I like this question, honestly, because this is something I kind of wanted to get into. I want to hear people's opinions in the chat, get in the group there and to let me know
do
what you're
it?
thinking.
Yeah,
But I want because I've got a strong backing in hardcore, breakcore, death metal, right? But
yeah,
then also I've got this structure of reggae music and jungle drum and bass and just nice kind of vibes. And honestly, like the Ninja Fareye name, all that is reggae infused mashups.
yeah.
So whether be it jungle, be it breakcore, be it dubstep, be it gabber, be it hardcore, whatever in between, I'm a catalog. Some people are just the same song. Me, I'm the catalog.
Yeah.
So you can look up Ninja Fareye, and you know what? That's the funny thing, right? Is I've been booked for shows, and I show up, and I'm like, hey, I didn't know if you wanted me to play the hardcore breakcore stuff or the jungle drum and bass. And they're
Yeah.
like, I didn't know you did X, Y, or Z,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's always
Yeah, but
weird.
no, I wanted it under the same name for sure.
Yeah, I think you as a legitimate DJ probably have more experience with kind of seeing what the crowd likes. Me as just like a producer guy, I show up and it's like, well, if they don't fucking like the first song, they aren't gonna like the next seven. So there's not much I could do. I want you. You mentioned mashups.
Yeah.
I'm curious about if you could explain, like, where are you getting like acapellas? Is this are everybody using the same ones? Is this like kind of like a bargain bin thing? Is it
Yeah,
like
okay.
hip
So
hop
like in
for?
those early days, okay, I was on the forums like raggedjungle.com
Okay.
or what's that more acid one?
Oh, Dogs of Acid or yeah, or
Dogs of
whatever.
Acid,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, Dogs on Acid, yeah. And I would just get the sample packs and that's where I started from for
Okay.
sure. I've there's God, I almost don't even want to get into this, but there's that whole
Okay.
thing where
You don't
I
need to
do
tell your
reggae infused
secrets if
stuff.
you don't need to tell your secrets if you don't want to. It's just like I don't
No, no,
know.
no, no
I just
secret, no
don't know.
secret.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
just like almost touchy area, I guess, because
Okay.
there's the element of cultural appropriation, right? I
Okay.
like,
Really?
frankly, I didn't see myself as being one of those people, but if you didn't know any better, maybe you're thinking, oh, what the fuck, right? You ruined this reggae song.
I don't know about that. Like I've seen some
Oh,
pretty bad mashups on TikTok. Like there are some sacrilegious mashups. Maybe
and
not
and
jungle,
the
but
artist,
yeah.
as they should, probably hate it, right? They
Mm,
despise that crap. So I didn't want to be responsible for that shit. So nowadays, I'm only, if you hear a vocal in my thing, it's most likely that I've hired that vocalist to do that.
Nice,
Like
nice.
I'm making sure the money goes to where it's supposed to go these days. But I'm a bit, I'm straight up privileged, man. Like I can do that. Not everyone can do that. So I'm not against the mashup style. I even hear stuff come out on big labels, and I'm like, yo, that's using the same sample pack I got back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
But anyway, good. I shouldn't hate. I don't hate one way or the other because I've
Yeah.
used the bootleg samples. I bootleg, sure.
Well, you're privileged.
Um,
You're privileged in the sense that you could just go down to Kensington Market and like walk into one of these like reggae nights, dub nights. I remember when
there's
I
that
lived
too. There
there.
is the physical location element to it. Yeah.
If you left your window open when you go to sleep, you would just hear like you would hear the MCs like screaming over top of the PA. It was awesome or not awesome depending if you like that or not.
Oh yeah. No, man, I've made the comment before that I love Toronto, okay, because I could stand on any random intersection and on one corner there's a car pounding reggae music, and on the other corner there's a guy pounding some jungle music, and I'm there in the middle just rocking the hell out.
Yeah. Can you can we talk about like you touched on something there about like when you first start you don't know kind of what you're doing and you just kind of get samples because you kind of
Mhm.
aren't at that level yet to kind of understand
Yeah.
the nuances. Can you talk about how you would find an original MC to do like a like a I don't know MC your jungle track or even your breakcore track? Is it like local? Do you go on like Upwork or Fiverr or something like that? How do you do that?
You could there's those options. I've heard, man, there's some notorious artists that have gone on Fiverr and gotten some licks that are like, whoa,
Nice.
okay, that was worth the $10.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You can do that. That's totally cool. I I started from a different place. I know the legendary artists that I want to voice. And I just started saying, you know what? I'm going to reach out to Johnny Osborne. I'm going to reach out to King Kong. I'm going to reach out to Capleton. I've talked to all these people now, and now I've got vocals from them. I started kind of from the
Nice.
top, and then I sort of worked my way down,
Yeah,
where now I'm only just now discovering Toronto vocalists that are amazing.
yeah,
Friendliness is one, and Bandit MC. Bandit MC. Oh my God, this guy is so good. Friendliness too, man. These guys are so good. You and I will actually. We both know so many. Underrated doesn't even do these people justice, and you are
yeah.
one of these people I'm talking about
Oh,
actually,
thank
where
you.
the talent is so through the roof, and I'm forced to book us at this like
Yeah, under
30-person party, and it's like, holy good Lord, to put you in front of a stadium, those people would lose their shit.
yeah, it's wild with the no when all your friends are DJs and musicians. I feel that it's weird. I don't want to sound like
Mm.
weird or anything like that, but like
Mm.
I feel so lucky to know so many fucking talented people. And
Oh yeah, oh, I get it. We're getting sappy now.
well, yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah, I
No.
know. I like. I don't want to, but it's crazy. It only started hitting me in the last couple of years when I started doing this podcast, and I was like, man, like I know all these like really fucking like good DJs and stuff like that, like and people that know what they're doing,
Yeah.
and like even in New Brunswick, like some of these people that are in like bands,
Oh
it's
man.
because it's a big like punk kind of like area, right? And it's like if they would have grew
Oh
up,
yeah.
if they were born in Southern California, they would have been the next Green Day or whatever. But because no one
Right.
gave a shit
Oh, it could
about
be a little
Moncton or no.
location bias, huh?
Yeah, I think it's location bias a lot. I don't think I think only recently you've seen a lot of love for Toronto with like Drake and all like Dead Mouse and who's the
Ooh,
girl
yeah.
Crystal
But then
Castles.
people are
But
always shocked to find out, oh, that guy's from Canada. That's
yeah,
that's a surprise.
yeah, yeah. But it's kind of better that
So
way too, though, right?
mm,
I'm kind of hoping that that becomes like a tourism sort of thing where people are going to find undiscovered kind of artists playing at small
ooh, oh,
venues.
buddy, we
That'd
get
be
a little
cool.
bit of that kind of CBGB sort of vibe there, eh?
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about your Suck Punk, Suck Puck Records release that's coming up. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, 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 just a little bit. Man, Suck Puck is a crew that I have been loving to support right off the get-go. Fat Cat is kind of at the head of it. Fat Frumos, I should say, sorry. Fat Frumos, Dima. Such an awesome, awesome crew. They really help support the underground, the really unknown hard as hell artists, hard as steel kind of producers, and they will come out on this label. But now with recent world scenarios, this crew is based out of Ukraine, and so it's been even nicer to support
What's
them.
going on there?
It's like
No, I'm just
it
joking.
was never going out of my way to support these guys, and now it's just like it feels so good,
Yeah.
to give back. Wonderful crew. They once hosted me. Well, okay, sorry, this wasn't really a suck puck event, but it was collabed in Amsterdam, and similar deal with this Mexico gig I have coming up, where the Venetian Snares didn't play it. It wasn't a lot of big names or anything, but the guys that played it were just so incredible, young as anything, right? And they were just up for crazy bullshit. They were up for all kinds of genre swapping, and it was nice to see the next couple of generations
Yeah.
coming up, and that's what Suck Puck is really helping thrive, because they're pretty popular these days too.
What would you get? What advice would you give to a young person who wants to get into either promoting, producing, or both?
I'll say this because this is at the top of my head actually, is about the promoting, event organizing. Honestly, anyone listening to this, even you, man, what I saw a lot in Toronto, okay, and elsewhere too, but because I live in Toronto, someone would throw a show, this is their first show ever, okay, and they have all these expectations, right? And maybe they just barely make their money back. Maybe they don't even make their money back.
I don't think they're gonna make
And
their
then
money
they're
back.
and then they're put off, and they're just like, oh no, I'm never doing that again. And then they
Yeah.
just disappear.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I went into this pretty what's the word? Help me out with the word here. But
I
like,
feel
I
like
had
you have
such
a love
low
for it.
standard. Sorry, what?
I don't know about the standard thing, but I feel like you have a love for that type of music, and since you love it so much, there's a consistency. So even if you do something and if it flops, you'll be like, well, I'll do another one and I'll learn from the mistake. And I think,
Well, and that was
yeah,
it. So I wish for the young up and comers that are thinking, oh, I want to throw a show, but maybe it won't go well. You know what? Go into it knowing it's not going to do well.
yeah,
And then when it
exactly.
does, you're like, oh my God, that was a fucking amazing
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree. I totally agree.
for that. And then I guess, like the production thing, I'll tell you what I did as maybe advice, but I know for a fact this does not work for everyone, and I might get some hate for this.
Okay.
In the early days, I used to see a lot of, like bedroom DJs and these guys that were just, sure, they were practicing and they were building their repertoire and etc. But they were kind of like expecting some big wig promoter to just walk into their bedroom and like just pick them and be like, okay, you're playing
Yeah,
this festival
yeah,
now. So I a little bit cheated, and I just started throwing shows with the big names that I wanted to play with.
yeah,
So like living in Ottawa, there's not much going on in Ottawa, but we had DJ K. I had DJ K to mess with. And so I'd bring him out, Ms. Rev, who's gotten herself out into the world as well. Marcus Visionary is kind of a local dude. And so I would bring these names to me, and so it's a little bit of a cheat. People don't necessarily like that.
but they need that though, right? Like people might think that, oh, there's something, but it's those people need shows to play, right? Like Evil
They
Activities
need,
isn't gonna go to fucking Quebec City on his own volition unless someone is gonna promote
mm,
them or something like that. This is
yeah,
just a big
yep, yep,
name
yep.
I'm thinking off the top of my head, or if you're Canadian, it's one thing, but like if you're from like the Netherlands, you don't give a fuck about the East Coast of Canada, right? So
Yeah,
they
I
need
know.
they
Yeah,
need somebody
yes.
to bring them there. So I think it's a good thing, honestly.
Yeah, no, no, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. So wait. I'm having a sip of coffee. I know that sounds awful on the recording.
No, I like it. I like it because this is I want people to. This is a DIY podcast, and I want everybody to realize it. You could start your own fucking podcast. Anybody out there that's listening,
That's true. That's true. But
Right?
again, you interviewed fucking Dr. Tom Pritchard, man. Like you've interviewed Duran. You've interviewed my boy Rubber Muffin. Like
Yeah.
these are just unbelievable people.
Yeah. Well, it's I don't know. There was. I'm just kind of fascinated by. I find the older you get, the more you turn into like kind of like music boomer guy, where you kind of where you're like, what equipment did they use to record that album? You know. But since we're kind of millennials and we're like, it's more like, oh, what's the vintage software Octamed? Like, which version of Logic did you use? That's kind of so. I don't know. It's rewarding for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, fair enough, fair enough.
Um.
No, I get it.
Can,
I get it.
can we
Oh, man, like my setup is so embarrassing though. I try not to even get into it. I don't even want to know what the new kids are using necessarily because it just puts me to shame.
I'll tell you exactly what they're using because I interviewed a bunch of them and I kind of started going like, if someone's under 25, I'm not gonna even bother. They're using Serum, a MacBook, and Ableton.
Yeah.
This is exactly and Splice. That is what they're using for everything. I was like,
Well,
oh
hey, no,
man,
but you know what though? I don't mind
I don't
the
either.
the
I think it's
patchwork
cool.
you can do in a place like Serum. I use the hell out of Vital right now.
I heard that's big. Yeah,
And I'm just it's like I know in my head what sound I want and I can get in there and I can make that shit what feels like from scratch, you know? I don't know, like share your opinion on that, but that's
um, I haven't been I don't have an opinion. Just the last VST I remember downloading is like massive, and this is like in 2012 or
yeah,
whatever with Skrillex
yeah,
is
yeah,
big. I'm kind of more of like an offline kind of guy. Hey, can we talk
sure.
about the most important? Let's talk about the elephant in the room here. All right,
Ah,
what the fuck is up with the Amen beat, the Amen break? Can you talk about that a little bit? Maybe a little bit of history in your own
what?
words, and
Yeah,
why
why
is it
is it
so
such a thing?
timeless?
Man, I even
So
remember
timeless.
like my like trainer in this whole digital music world is Rubber Muffin, of course. And the one day he came into me and it was just like I could see the light above his head. He's like, "Brother, I figured it out." And then he plays me that wave file of the Amen break. And
Yeah.
he's like, "It's this. Everyone uses this."
Yeah. Well,
It's got that really crisp it's the snare kick simultaneous,
yeah,
but boom, it's got that at the end.
yeah,
And I don't know, just when you match it against any other drum kit,
it fits everywhere.
it, it's more likable. And then,
Yeah,
it sucks, man. I would go to the record store and I would dig through the drum and bass jungle section, and undoubtedly, like if I just tried not to think about it, I'm just taking it in each track by track, I would select pretty much exclusively Amen
yeah,
driven tracks.
yeah. I like we all know there's like the Apache, there's like the Sniper or whatever, and
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know, man. Like that, oh man, you could fucking put that on anything. You could put that on a lawnmower and it'll sound good. I don't know. I don't know what it
I'm
is.
sure we've done it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
We
um.
pushed it to the point that if me and Talek Zen are playing a show together, like back to back, we call ourselves Amen Fury.
I remember this. Yes, I do
And then
remember this.
like our tracks were almost exclusively Amen, like just completely ridiculous, like just wow. Yeah,
Can you talk
yeah.
about the Canadian jungle landscape right now? What are your thoughts on it? Do you feel like it's thriving?
Yeah, I mean, oh God, I should almost like say like for in and I might I'm wrong about this, but in my head, jungle is one thing, drum and bass is a totally different monster.
Totally.
There's some songs that kind of prove me wrong about that, but so you're asking about the jungle scene. I don't know that really exists exactly. That DJ Hype play a show recently. Toronto's doing pretty good. I don't feel the need to throw jungle shows as bass driven necessarily. There's better people doing like the DJ Hype, Daddy Earl kind of shows. Um, Man, and I'm just gonna say this just to see how you feel or how people think about this, but I call drum and bass kind of like failed pop music.
Really? Why
It's,
why do you say that?
it's well, just there's a certain breed of it, especially right now. What the kids love is
The
it's
fucking
kind of
Gold
like
Dust song.
rollers with a female vocal over top. I love female vocalists,
Yeah.
and rollers are great to go to sleep to, but it's not something you play at a club exactly.
What's that one song that was like really popular? Not Gold Dust. It was like what was that song? That's a roller, right? Isn't
Oh,
it Gold Dust?
and
It's gold
sh-
something.
Yeah,
Anyways,
but okay, there are, you know what though, even as I'm saying that, there are uh there's examples of this stuff that's good. I don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. But like again, to the going to the record store, if I would grab one of those, I think it's you'd call them rollers, where you know how like when you're selecting tracks, you kind of listen to
DJ
the intro and you're
Fresh.
like, oh yeah, cool, cool. I'll go into the first drop and like, oh no, okay, this is still good. And then if it's still good by the end, I'm gonna buy that record. But
Yeah.
these rollers, I'd listen to the intro and then I skip in 2 minutes. I'm still waiting for the song to start. 3 minutes in, still hasn't started. 4 minutes in, I'm still waiting for it to do something. And then the song's over. And I'm like, it never, what? Like that was the song?
Oh
Dear
wow.
sweet Lord.
You're hating on the DNB. Yeah, it was a DJ Fresh. That's the song that had stuck in my head. This is what I imagined because that's a very pop sounding song. But I
Sure.
feel like that's like a pop song that in the UK would be a pop song. Here, you know how Canadian electronic music in Canada didn't really exist on the radio until Skrillex came out.
Oh, that's
You
true.
know,
That's true.
uh,
Yeah. No, and actually, yeah. So back to your question about the Canadian and jungle.
yeah.
Again, I live in Toronto, so it's a bit, my vision is a bit skewed. To me, it does look like it's thriving. Really, even though I said there's no hard ass jungle like old school, not too much of that. But drum and bass jungle is like bopping right now in Toronto anyway.
Cool.
I see Vancouver shows popping up. I see Montreal's getting some regular stuff in the mix. So
I
it's happening.
I have one we're towards the end of the interview. Thank you so much, Dylan, for this talk. I appreciate it. But before we go, I was wondering if you could give us a little history lesson on why is reggae and dub so tied to jungle music? I know you were saying you were talking about a cultural appropriation sort of
Yeah.
kind of thing. I don't know anything about that. I don't even think that. I don't go to a jungle show and be like, "Oh, that's fucking racist" or anything. I don't know. I think that's like the fucking stupidest thing. You could say that about anything. Like, but
And again, I've never actually heard that directly or
like
anything, but
Big Mama
yeah,
Thornton wrote a fucking Hound Dog, and Elvis went and stole it. Like, I'd be angry if someone stole a song and made like $1 million. But if you're sampling like a
ooh,
reggae tape from like 1988, and 30 people go to your show and that's it, I don't think it's as big of a crime. Yeah, but
yeah,
anyways, that's
man.
just my kind of take. Can you give us the history on what is the history behind reggae dub being kind of tied with jungle?
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, I know I just listened to it recently. I know Nicky Nuts got it on the nose when you talked to him that it's like in England, there's a lot of Jamaicans, and they really there was this electronic music that was bubbling up, the kind of breakbeats. Breakbeats were just
Yeah,
bubbling up. But then this Jamaican crew wanted to add their kind of flavor. Not that they wanted to, but they just started adding their flavor to it.
yeah,
They didn't like the drum and bass label, so they used jungle as jungle music.
yeah,
And whoa, did that stuff! It just sounds so good. I can't deny that how good this shit sounds.
yeah,
So good. That when General Levy came out with Incredible back in the 90s, and that there was a music video for it, and people are going off to it.
yeah.
Whoa, like what the hell? And so that it kind of bubbled out of England for sure. Yeah, Toronto has a bit of this too. There's a few reggae artists like Coco T that also call Toronto home, and Coco T is a big part of that Sound Clash culture, and also yeah, so Sound Clash also is a big influencer on jungle music for sure.
What is Sound Clash? Can you explain that to the listeners?
That's like I think it goes back to Jamaica proper, where they would have two different groups of musicians, two crews, sound crews. Some of them would even be, oh my God, if you can even imagine, at let's say on the north end of the venue is King Tubby, and then on the other south side of the venue is Saxon, and they have
Wow.
their speakers facing each other,
Holy fuck. You imagine
and
that?
you're kind of blasting back and forth. It's like it's you go by turn, right? Like
Yeah.
typically what it would be is, group A goes first, their crowd cheers, and then group B goes, their crowd cheers. Whoever has the louder cheer wins.
So it's kind of like a fuck. Sorry for saying this to everybody at home. Like 8 Mile. This is like the most mainstream reference, like I say, or it's like kind of like a battle, like an audio battle.
Yeah. But way before hip hop was even a thing, right? Like way back.
Yeah.
Man, and that stuff gets crazy. Like I'm almost glad I wasn't around in the 70s for that shit because like crews would start bringing guns out, okay?
Yeah.
And they didn't not just shoot the competition, but like if their crew did good, they would be popping off in the air,
Oh,
lick
good
shots,
Lord.
plah. That's lick shot, man.
Oh,
You know,
that's where the term comes
busting
from.
shots and licking wood is just whapping on the wood. But like those parties go off. Oh my Lord! And
Yeah.
so to just take that energy and then add some nutty drums and a little bit not heavier of bass, but like synthesized bass, right?
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, the blend is just so good. Um, Again, I might get off on a tangent here, but for
Do
me
it.
personally, I was brought up in a almost odd way where my parents would have like friends from Trinidad and Tobago. We had a lot of Jamaican friends. All of my friends growing up, their parents listened to country music, 100% country music. My parents would have Linton Kwesi Johnson. My mom would listen to Bjork. And like I knew about Bob Marley, but we also knew about Junior Reed and Dennis Brown and all of like these reggae heads that are just so good. And so I was brought up thinking that that was all just normal. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know who Dennis Brown is? That seems insane to me.
Yeah.
Turns out a lot of the world doesn't know who the fuck Dennis Brown is. So I started doing the Raga Jungle thing to help bring that to the spotlight as well. And then help the kids that were kind of like me, where they didn't know that this was such a passionate thing. And oh my God, it's so good. So I'm hoping I'm actually exposing some people to this. It's not new, but it's like it's almost so old people wouldn't know about it.
You're
And I'm
keeping it alive.
showing it off.
You're keeping it alive. Yeah.
Keeping it alive. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's crazy how, especially on this show, and like anecdotally, like on my personal life, like
Yep.
how parents play such a huge role in shaping the musical tastes of the child.
Hmm.
It's fucking bizarre. Well, I mean, it's not bizarre, but like it's like you would expect it. Like if your mom's listening to King Tubby or whatever, you know, and
Yeah,
yeah, I think
yeah.
there's something there that maybe Freud missed out on when he was like when he was studying people. That's
Oh, for
actually
sure. No, there's
yeah,
a big something there. Yeah, no, I bet.
yeah. Dylan,
I bet some people go against it. Oh yeah, no, go ahead.
I know a guy, my buddy Chris. Shout out to Chris if you're listening. He's probably not. His father was super into guitars, and he had all these super nice guitars. We were like 12 or 13, and
Hmm.
when Nirvana came out, and like Silverchair, like it was just grunge on Much Music, and his dad would be able to play every song. They're not hard songs to play, but the point is, his dad
Sure.
was like a talented guitar player and had
Yeah.
all the gear, and we were just like amazed. And for a long time, this guy, I don't think he didn't really like it. I think it was like some type of rebellion. I've heard of some rebellious kind of childhood music stories. And Chris, if you're listening, if I butchered that story, I apologize. I don't mean to misrepresent you, but that's how I kind of remember it.
No, wait, Will, tell me if you can relate to this story. I used to think I was like the unique solo kid that did this, but apparently it's way more common. Is as a child, I went out and bought the cassette tape of Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
Cannot
And
relate.
I thought, ooh, I'm gonna go home and have fun and laugh
Yeah.
to this cassette tape. And I'm listening through it, and then comes on Cannibal Corpse, skull full of
Nice.
fucking maggots.
Nice.
And
Nice.
like to my parents, my dad was still alive, so I was like 6 or 7 or whatever when that came out. And I asked my parents, I'm like, why does nothing else sound like this one?
Yeah.
Like, why is everything else all happy, blah blah blah, and then skull full of maggots, and it's like, holy shit, where is the rest of this?
Well, I think a lot of movie soundtracks too expose people to some crazy
Mm,
shit as well. Like, thinking growing up, I remember, KMFDM. I think most people heard about KMFDM because of the manga VHS anime intro. I don't know if you remember that. And or the Mortal Kombat soundtrack.
Mortal Kombat soundtrack.
I think
Yes, sir.
Napalm
Yep.
Death might have been on that. Or was it? There was a metal band on
Yep.
that.
Napalm Death, Fear Factory,
Yeah, yeah,
man.
yeah.
Oh my God.
And
I love Fear Factory after that Mortal Kombat soundtrack
the
too.
same
Yep,
with
yep.
the same with the Matrix soundtrack, and there was a lot of movies
Yeah.
sound like Train Spotting. The Train Spotting soundtrack, I think, sold more copies than the fucking movie. I think more people had that soundtrack than they saw the actual damn movie, because there was 3 of the soundtracks. There was the orange one, the green one, and then like a blue one, I think.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah,
That's almost I would feel bad as the producer or director of that one. It's
movie
like,
soundtracks.
what, the soundtrack sold better than the movie?
Yeah, that's a thing I gotta think. Or yeah, now that I think about Natural Born Killers, the Lost Highway soundtrack, Trent Reznor. There was a movies. That is an unlocked memory. Fucking movie
Yeah.
soundtracks. You don't see that. Maybe it's happening, and it's just not on my radar. But I don't know what's like the latest movie that came out. The one with the Rock in it. I don't know if there's like a 12-track like album soundtrack or that. Maybe there is. I don't know.
Yeah, the kind of, that was cool at the beginning when they first started putting real music, not just originally composed music, but like a real soundtrack to movies.
Oh yeah,
And then
yeah.
that became kind of like a feature of it. And then I think that's kind of fading away now. I haven't heard of a good soundtrack in a while. That's a good point, though.
Yeah, I think maybe it was. I think it was just part of this Hollywood sort of pipeline of just like kind of like the record labels were friends with the movie industry, and they're like, oh, we got some bands we want to really push Tracy Lords, so we put her on this Mortal Kombat soundtrack or something.
Yeah.
And maybe now it isn't the same thing. I don't know.
All those songs that come on during the credits where they just kind of shoved it in there. It's like, well, we'll give them a couple bucks for this one.
Yeah, yeah. When Neo's flying away and they're playing Rage Against the Machine or whatever. Dylan, thank you so much. This is a great talk, useful information. Can you tell us where people can reach you, your socials, and if there's anything else you want to add before we take off?
Yeah, man. Well, I'm on SoundCloud, YouTube, Facebook, what else? Twitter, Insta, all as Ninjah Fareye, Ninja with an H, Fareye, Ninjah Fareye. And Jesus, yeah, now I'm doing gigs again because of the surviving COVID. Get at me about anything if people need, because I'm also a promoter here in Toronto. I have connections all over Canada. We do Canadian tours with people, all kinds of stuff. I am totally welcome to any pile of random stuff that people have for me, especially when it's music based.
Nice. Oh man, it was great catching up. I'll say bye to you after I stop the recording or whatever. But thanks everybody for listening, and take care. Bye.
Yeah, no, thank you everybody. Thank you, Will. Until next time.
Until next time, I'm going to borrow that. Bye, everybody.
This program was brought to you by the superwill64.com Entertainment Network. For more great shows, podcasts, and music, please visit superwill64.com.